Welcome to the Church Answers podcast. We try to have short, pithy, to the point, but helpful information for you in the local church. We're so grateful that Belay Solutions is our founding sponsor. If you did not get an opportunity to listen to the previous two podcasts where I interviewed Tricia Shortino, the CEO of Belay, go back. You'll really be blessed by hearing her life and what has happened with her. It was two short interviews, and when I mean too short, TWO, two of them, but it was also too short, TOO. So we'll have her back again. As always, we thank Belay. We know that those of you in ministry, particularly local church ministry, have so much on your plate. I mean, the job description, particularly of a pastor, is like this unfurled scroll that just never ends. It's just one thing after another. Consider Belay, virtual assistant. Consider them to help you do the things that you need to do while they take so many other things off your plate. You'll be blessed by it, but even more so, your church will be blessed and the kingdom will be blessed as a result. I love the new resource that the Belay is offering you. It's called 25 Tasks a Pastor Can Delegate to an Assistant. You can substitute pastor there with executive pastor, student minister, or a lot of other positions there. But look at that. It's an incredible download. I think you'll be blessed just to look at that. And just go to belaysolutions.com/Tom Rainer, and you can get that immediately. It's a free resource, or you can look at it in the show notes. Our topic today, not that all of these aren't near and dear to my heart, but this one is near and dear to my heart. It's the topic of evangelism. And it's particularly the topic of evangelistic growth. Now, here's the reality. I'm going to give the bad news first, and then I'm going to give some good news solutions, okay? Most churches in North America are woefully anemic in evangelism. Evangelism is not taking place at any type of obedient level in many churches. I did say many, and I said most. I did not say all. If you summarize the purposes of the church as follows: worship, ministry, discipleship, evangelism, fellowship, prayer. If you look at those 6 purposes and you look at what the church does the least of, it is usually evangelism. And yet it is evangelism that was on the lips of Jesus right before he left this earth in his physical body. Acts 1:8, the mandate, the imperative, you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the ends of the earth. And then he left. Think about that. The last words of Jesus on earth were an evangelistic mandate. And I think one of the subtle whispers of the enemy is to convince us that we have other things we need to do, that we are too busy to do the main thing. We're too busy doing the good. We cannot be obedient to the Great Commission. And so I want to talk to you about churches that have seen evangelistic growth. What has taken place in those churches? Basically 2 areas that in many ways are just one combined, but I want to break them out. One is prayer. But the second will be how I will define prayer, gathered prayer. In most of the churches that had evangelistic growth, they had a small number of people who gathered together and prayed. They prayed for their church. They prayed for a lot of things in their community, but their focus on coming together was praying to reach people with the gospel. Now, it makes sense, doesn't it? You look at what happened in the Bible. Right before the first church was formed in Jerusalem, right before Peter preached his sermon at the Pentecost festival, right before all of that took place, the few were gathered in a room praying. And they stayed and prayed, and then the Holy Spirit came upon them, and the evangelistic growth took place. I realized that incredible coming of the Holy Spirit, where the Holy Spirit in the Old Testament came upon people, and in the New Testament, he dwelled in people. I realize that that's a unique point of demarcation in the history of God in our work, but it's also something that can apply today. They gathered and they prayed. Many times what we need to do in our churches is just pause. And I was recently talking to a pastor. He said, I can't get anybody to gather or pray. I said, well, let me ask you this. Are you willing to gather and pray? Sure. How about your wife? Yeah, she'll be ready. I said, that's it. You've got a group of 2 ready to gather and pray. Now, the reality of it is you probably could have gotten 4 or 5 or 6. It's not the number. It is the fact that a small number come together and pray. And they pray specifically for the lost to be reached, for the gospel to be proclaimed. We released a resource not too long ago, just a few days ago, called the Hope Initiative. And you can see the Hope Initiative in the show notes. We modeled it after this particular podcast emphasis. We modeled it after churches are gathering and praying. The whole purpose of the Hope Initiative is to get people together for a short time, just 30 days, and virtually begin to pray. We guide them through that for each of the 30 days. What we have seen again and again and again is that churches come together and they pray. And they pray for evangelistic growth. The early church exploded with growth, but it began by praying. Now, you can go to Pray and Go, and you can see the format that we have taken as we have learned from churches that have done just that. They have prayed and then they go. But you can just gather a small number of people in your church, and you may not be meeting together with all the tools we have today. You can do so maybe one time gathered, then do it virtually for a few days, and then gather for a final time. We have found this again and again. When a few people in the church do 2 things, gather and pray, that then becomes the impetus behind significant evangelistic growth. It is not a plug and play. It is not the latest program that works well, but it is something that God is using to change the culture of churches to move from an inward focus to an outward focus. Gathering and praying, the 2 factors that precede evangelistic growth in many churches. Look it up in the Hope Initiative, look in the show notes, and we can give you a lot more information about that. It's exciting stuff, folks. Thank you again, as always, Belay, for being our sponsor. Thank you for being our founding sponsor and just for providing all the ministry you do. You come alongside pastors and church staff, and you take off of their plate so many of the things that they don't need to be doing so they can focus on the things they should be doing. Once again, that's belaysolutions.com. You can see it in the show notes. And just a reminder, they're providing a free resource for you. 25 tasks a pastor can delegate to an assistant. Download it. It's super material, but it's not just for pastors. It's for anybody in leadership, things that you can do to delegate to an assistant. You will see why Belay is worth every penny, because they do those type of things with excellence. Once again, thank you as always for being on the Church Answers podcast. We'll continue to have these short, but hopefully memorable sessions together where we focus on one point that has application to the local church. Once again, remember to get the download, 25 tasks a pastor can delegate to an assistant. See the show notes or go to belaysolutions.com/Tom Rayner. And we will see you in the next episode. Hey, folks, this is a PS to our podcast. We got some exciting stuff that we want to offer you absolutely for free. Sam, when you think about predictive factors in a church's growth, if you take out demographics, what are some things that come to mind? Just 2. I mean, don't give me a list of 10. Just 2 or 3 things that come to mind on predictive growth of a church.
Well, evangelism and whether the church is doing it or not.
Bingo.
And then I will add, is it an ongoing evangelism emphasis?
Double bingo. Well. Maybe something about leadership and their commitment to that. So all of the above.
Evangelistic churches have evangelistic pastors. Is the staff, is the lead pastor doing the work themselves?
We have a free download for you, and it's actually a sheet that you can self-score. You answer 20 questions, anywhere from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And we come back and we predict what your growth rate is going to be for the next year in worship attendance. It's not a perfect tool, but it's a good tool. There's a link to that for the attendance predictor. Look in the show notes. You'll absolutely love it. That's cool. We'll see you soon.